So we're talking to Infinite about a variety of different engagements, and really our focus at N3rd Street has always been to create an ecosystem and infrastructure for amateur athletes. And really the goal now is to find ways to engage with the Infinite group that has so many different wings and find ways to create that infrastructure specifically in their region and then take the talents and skills they have to replicate elsewhere.
Yeah, and from Infinite's perspective, our goal has always been to create a perfect infrastructure within esports as a whole. So from us, it's about how do we best benefit esports, help grow the industry as a whole, and obviously grassroots and collegiate and things like that is a huge factor of what makes sports popular. And we're very sure that it's going to be the thing that makes esports popular. So, and helping it grow with a younger demographic and a younger audience is essential to continue esports growth into the future.
Yeah, and so we were just at lunch having a bunch of conversations about amateur esports and what's going on, and we hear a lot about grassroots, and we hear a lot about, especially in the Overwatch League, where teams are going to have to come back to their local market and build a fan base locally. What does it mean to you from an amateur esports side, specifically to Infinite and the whole umbrella and the optics side of things? What does that actually mean to you guys, and then what are you doing to create that infrastructure in your area?
Yeah, so obviously Infinite owns a lot of brands at this point. We obviously have Optic Gaming, which is one of our flagship sort of brands, I guess, and then the Houston Outlaws, which has given us a huge amount of understanding of regionalization, as we were talking before. For me, I was actually pretty skeptical about regionalization before. I always thought, esports, it's international. We shouldn't be putting people in pigeonholes. We shouldn't be, Indian people should love to come and hang out. Part of what's great about esports is that you can have people from all different cultures coming together in one place. But what I didn't realize is that there's this hunger in local regional environments to really passionately support a local team because they see it all around them with sports, and gamers want to have that same, feel that same thing and have that same community physically. Right. So generating that fan base, especially with the Outlaws, was crazy. We ran a watch party as the first event we ever did. Yeah. We expected about 100 people, and 600 people turned up, and was screaming and cheering, and it's a big difference between when you do a big esports event with a ton of teams where the fan base all support different teams, having 600 people in a room that all support one team is a really crazy experience to have. And as I was saying before, one of the things for me that really sort of made me very emotional about it was we were speaking to the community and trying to understand why they were so excited by this, and they were saying, finally, there's something in my region that belongs to my world. Yeah. So instead of I have to support my local baseball team or basketball team, which I will because I'm from Houston or from Austin or San Antonio, but I don't have that passion for it. Now I can do something in my world, which is gaming, and I can be passionate just like their parents are passionate about football or something like that. Yeah. So, and then with Optic is a whole different giant in the sense that it's a mega brand in esports. Grassroots for Optic is about building the next generation of fans. And for us, as I was saying before, as a brand, Optic is very well known in America, very much like GameStop. GameStop doesn't need to promote GameStop because everyone knows what GameStop is. So it's more about how do we grow that fan base and the new generation of fan base and help them feel like they can be part of the Optic community, part of the green wall. Right. And that's also why we've done stuff like, literally yesterday we launched Optic India. So we're looking at how do we help grow grassroots in other countries as well. Like India is a really interesting up and coming country, especially in tech and in gaming.
Yep. Emerging economy.
Exactly. And Counter-Strike for them is a huge game. But the infrastructure is not really there. So we thought, well, if we bring Optic in and we show, there is Indian teams that are working very well. But for us, what we do is we can bring the brand in, we can help build the infrastructure, and we can help attract, because Optic is coming into India, suddenly all of these investors are interested in esports because they see us investing in the region.
To kind of be a pillar and set that precedent.
Exactly, and that's like 1.3 billion people, so that can be activated around gaming. So yeah, grassroots is just super important for that.
So, speaking to grassroots, next week you're going to be running Optic Arena, which will be a really good manifestation of that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Optic Arena is kind of like giving back to the fans. Yeah. I genuinely believe that, obviously I deal with a lot of marketing, and I love the fact that marketing to a fan base is about giving the fans what they want.
Right.
So you don't get this situation where you're sort of two-faced about things. Honestly speaking, the best way to market to a fan base is give them what they want. Like, help them enjoy being a fan of your brand. And Optic Arena is really a celebration of the Optic brand, of the Optic fans, of our community, of our content creators.
Tell our fans a little bit more about what Optic Arena is.
So it's basically an esports enjoyment event. It's linked to Acon in Dallas-Fort Worth. So it's part of the Acon event. We're taking over the big arena that's outside of Acon, the convention center. And it's primarily a giant community Fortnite event where we're working pretty closely with Epic and content creators to have a real sort of come and play. To compete, there will be prizes, but it's not hardcore esports. But one of the really cool things about it is that people get a chance to win like a golden ticket to the Pro-Am event at E3.
That's really cool.
They're not going to get to
3 days
play.
later. So
Literally, they win a ticket and they go straight over to the E3 event.
That's cool. That's really cool.
They'll get to hang out with the stars, with the pro players, with the celebrities like Ninja and people like that. Right. So super positive. But then also on top of that, we're doing a whole ton of other stuff. Like our COD team will be there, our CSGO team will be there, all of the content creators will be there doing live event, like live podcasts, live show matches, live discussions, signing sessions. So it's really like a convention around loving the Optic brand and that fan base.
Right. So the competitive side's all open? Anybody can enter?
I believe so, yeah. There will be some fighting games tournaments going on because obviously we have a good connection with the fighting games industry, and actually Texas and Dallas itself has a really strong fighting games community.
Heard the CEO of Engage, Panda.
Exactly. Panda is from Panda X Gaming originally, and now the president of Engage it's his love. Yeah. But also for us, it connects well with Acon. Like Dragon Ball FighterZ is so big right now.
Right.
Acon is a massive anime convention, so we want to be able to give back to that fan base. So there'll be some really cool fighting game stuff going on with prizes as well, which is mixture of invitational and qualification.
Got it. So with Optic right now, you guys are focused on building you've become a national brand and a pillar brand, but you're still acquiring new customers in each of these markets. One of the things we haven't really talked about or at least for me, I speak to a lot of publishers and infrastructure providers, and we talk about the value of creating an ecosystem of amateur esports because it'll sell more product, it'll push more viewers, it'll create longer lifetime fans. But there's also a recruiting aspect to you guys, and recruiting for the players that compete, but also recruiting new fans. And those type of amateur ecosystems can help you create new fan bases for people who weren't already fans of esports, and kind of expand the actual market itself. Tell me a little bit more about what that means to you guys and how you can take advantage of that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, so university and collegiate gaming, as well as just gaming in general with younger people and personalities, is essential, as you said, to building that core fan base. Obviously, when you're young and you're coming up through university, you're deciding, or college, or even just hanging out with your friends on the street, whatever. You're deciding like what brands are your brands, like what belong to your world, what fits with you. Right. And obviously that's, from a just raw marketing perspective, the best time to speak to those people, because you want to at least let them know what your brand is, what you stand for, so they can at least put you in their thought process when they're deciding who they're going to support. Right. Obviously all of the large teams would like to do that. But it is very difficult to connect with those groups of people en masse without it costing a massive amount of money. Yeah. So we're always very interested in seeing amateur leagues coming up. Obviously, you guys are doing a whole ton of great stuff when it comes to building that amateur fan base and giving opportunities to young people who are maybe not able to play video games 24/7 or own PCs or
right, and that's a big part of our mission is lowering the cost of entry to play and removing that barrier of entry to play. And I think a lot of our fan base takes it for granted that if you're playing esports right now, you're of a certain level of privilege. You're able to afford that console, that PC, to pay for those games, to pay for your peripherals. When a big, too large a part of America cannot afford to play those, and by us going out and creating these events and these series, we're able to increase the amount of people that are able to play esports. And one of the things that was most exciting to me about the Infinite group is that you have Engage, this events arm that's actually going out there and creating those types of opportunities for people to play. Tell us a little bit more about the strategy behind Engage and how it ties into a broader family of companies and brands.
Yeah, so obviously Infinite and the way we've built the company is to generate an infrastructure, right? So we have on Engage side, they're an events company, right? So they obviously most known for the opening of the $1 million esports stadium in Arlington, right, where they're working very closely with the city to help the growth of the area, to build up a really custom-built location for large-scale esports events. But we also have brands like GGEA, which is an esports academy, and the goal for GGEA is to build grassroots, right? Is to find the next superstars, to work out systems on how do we detect who is going to be an amazing new esports star, right, for the teams.
Right.
And the way Infinite looks at it is all of these are companies, brands. So we don't, whilst we own teams, our companies are not exclusive to the teams. Right. So Engage can go out and do work for Dallas Fuel or Envious, or can go to Europe and do work for Fnatic. That has there's no negative on Infinite for that. Obviously, we want that company to do well.
Right.
The advantage we have is we give them immediate access to Optic Gaming and Allegiance and Obey, which are our 3 teams that we own. And I think that, and obviously the Outlaws, and having that flexibility allows us to do crazy stuff. So for example, with the Outlaws, Engage has already done, as far as we're aware, the first ever esports signing tour in America for players, which is great. It's crazy that they've been able to do that. And we did the largest watch party in America, and we did the first ever esports block party literally a couple of weekends ago. And in Infinite, we have a strong motto that is really just custom, come out of our community and the work ethic we have, which is we always want to be doing things that have never been done before. Right. Like if we're coming out and someone's saying we're just putting a generic esports event, we're probably not going to be part of it because it's been done before, it's not interesting, it's already being done by people who are very capable. So our goal is to really push the boundaries and really pressure the industry into making steps into the future. And I think that something that's been woefully under-focused is grassroots. And we look at, there's a reason why the majority of PC gamers are white males, because that's where the privilege is generally in America. And if you think about Texas alone, Texas is like 40-50% Hispanic, and that console market is massive. Right. That's why America's console community is so big, because there's a lot of people who can't afford PCs of every gender and race and background. And I think that that's actually a good place in where Optic is very positive, is that Optic comes from the console community. Obviously, Hector Rodriguez is Hispanic, came from Mexico originally. That is something that's very important to him, is that we're able to hopefully bridge that gap. Right. And we really want to see more minority groups, more underprivileged people getting into gaming, which is why I think what you guys do is just so positive in general. Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting for me, even in my head, a console is still kind of expensive for a lot of people in America. And when we started doing our research into the other infrastructural opportunities there are, I was really surprised to see what GameStop does. And I didn't realize how many people go to GameStop to just play. And that opportunity became a really big marketing and distribution channel for us in promoting. But you're right in that consoles are a little bit of a lower barrier, but they still do have that high barrier. So I think it's very important with events like you're doing next weekend to provide the consoles, to provide the infrastructure and let them play on it. I wanted to follow up on something you said about branding. You guys obviously you have so many different brands, and you have such a strong brand with the Optic brand that's now an international brand. And when you and I were sitting at lunch, you told me a story about China, where outlaw is a bad word, and I wanted to hear more about that story and how you guys adapted to that and how it actually became a strength for you. Yeah, so one of the things we always try and do is we really don't do things by halves. So if you take the Outlaws, for example, there's a very clear purpose behind everything we do with that brand. Obviously, there's some opportunities that we take along the way that we'd love to claim was something we thought of beforehand, but it just happens.
Winging it.
Yeah. But the brand itself is very clearly focused around what it does, right? There's a reason why our logo is what it is. There's a reason why it has a single star in it. There's a reason why it's a longhorn. You know, branding is super important to create connection to your fan base. So a good example is sharpshooters. Basically in China, outlaw is an outlawed word. You can't be called something that is a negative connotation, so you can't be called like thieves or outlaws or robbers or anything that would be against society. So we rebranded, or didn't rebrand, we took the name sharpshooters, which is the rough equivalent of the name in Chinese. And to do with that wasn't something we intended on doing because we just had to. But what we did with that is we saw the potential in creating a lifestyle brand around the sharpshooters. And what that does is it makes the Outlaws a clear brand that is part of the Overwatch League. Right. But what it allows us to do is create a secondary brand that is still connected to the Outlaws because it's the Chinese version of the Outlaws. Right. But it gives us another theme to play with. So Outlaw stuff is very merchandise, Sharpshooter stuff is very lifestyle. And it allows our fan base to branch out, because we don't want to do other merchandise that's like Blizzard's merchandise, because we make money off their merchandise as well. So why would we make another jersey? Right. But we can make stuff that Blizzard would never think of making, like sleeve protectors, or we're making a girls' yoga pants, which say raucous down the side, but it's just super popular.
Nice.
And that's what we try and always do with brands like that, is because our partnership with Blizzard is a partnership, we try and think about how do we purposefully make our brands complement the Blizzard brands.
Got it. Yeah, so I mean, I've spoken to a lot of teams, and I've heard the word lifestyle come out of your mouth more than most of the teams we talk about. When I talk to partners of ours like Ultimate in LA who are lifestyle brands, you hear it a lot from them. Hearing it from a team is interesting. Tell me more about how you guys see being a lifestyle brand as a means to executing your goals.
Yeah, so again, it's about the community. It's about speaking to our community and building a understanding through the community and building a real following around a brand. And obviously, because I'm from a marketing background, I also help look after our lifestyle brands. So we have actually 2 apparel brands as part of the Infinite ecosystem. Number 1 is called 3rd Label, which is a lifestyle brand, and number 2 is Sector 6. Sector 6 builds very specifically custom designed esports sporting wear, so like tracksuit pants, jerseys, really where they make their most business is off. They build and design jerseys for teams. So actually, grassroots stuff, if a team is coming in and wants to join up a grassroots tournament, they can go over to Sector 6 website and request a jersey design based on a concept.
That's cool.
And they will build it and sell it to those people. So they can do it, and Sector 6 is covering hundreds of teams with that are just amateur teams that just want a really cool jersey. But on top of that, they make Optic Gaming's jerseys, they make some of the Outlaws background stuff like the Raucous leggings. Yeah. And then 3rd Label is very much like Ultimate in the sense that 3rd Label is about building a high quality sports lifestyle brand within esports. So giving the fans something else, another way to express fandom. So a good example would be Sector 6 will build a t-shirt with the Outlaws logo on it, massive, on the side, on the arm, like this. What 3rd Label will do is build a t-shirt like I'm wearing, right? So this is an Outlaws t-shirt.
Right. It
says Outlaws on it, but you could wear this quite happily down the street. It's like a bottom cut, so it's a big hanging t-shirt. Obviously we put this on it purely because the fans wanted more branding and stuff. Sure. But we have stuff that never has the Outlaws logo on it. And the goal of that is that you can rep the Outlaws without being seen as being like a mega nerd or anything like that. You can go to a club and wear a cool Outlaws branded item that maybe another Outlaws fan will be like, yeah, I get you, but everyone else will be like, oh, that's a sick t-shirt, I would buy that. Right. So that's why lifestyle is important, because it adds depth. esports in itself is seen as sports, right? But lifestyle allows you to go beyond that and be like a culture, a following.
It's like being an athlete, being a gamer. You know, it's a whole category of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I really like the Sector 6 model and servicing the teams, especially the lower teams. Those type of support structures and infrastructure for the amateur teams is, you know, why we exist and what we're doing. It kind of leads me back to another question I wanted to ask you about the Arlington Stadium. You and I had also talked at launch about the need for government funding, and something like Arlington couldn't be possible without government funding. And now we're going to have this incredible stadium, this awesome opportunity here in Texas. What about, you know, the rest of the country? You know, how important is it that we convince governments to spend money? And more importantly, what is the return for a government? What is the return for the city of Arlington spending this type of money on that type of arena?
Yeah, so there's two things there, I think. Number one is that esports still isn't really making the kinds of money that sports is making, right? Like sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Esports is a multi-million-dollar industry connected to gaming, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yeah. And to still continue getting visibility and getting power, esports needs the backing of large groups such as the City of Arlington, who are insanely focused on helping grow that fan base. And I think that is going to make a very, very big benefit to esports as a whole, is that they focus on that. And if you look at, as I said, the areas where esports has really hit the headlines recently, obviously Jonathan has been on the national news, very much helped by the fact that the city is supporting this venture. And the fact is they own the land. So they have to support in. You couldn't build this stadium or get the investment to build it without their support. But what also it does is you look at things like IEM Katowice, right? Which is the reason why Katowice originally worked, is that the city gave them the stadium for free to use. And that's why they chose that location. The city
now look what it's become.
Yeah, it drives hundreds of thousands of esports fans to a relatively unknown city in Poland. And that's what this does, is it drives intelligent, tech-focused, affluent people to a city or region. So you want to get 100,000 tech-savvy nerds coming to your city, like everyone does. Everybody knows the value of that. One of the easiest ways to do it is run a massive esports event.
Yep. Exactly, and then you create this ecosystem of all the other opportunities, be it software, technology, gaming, or entertainment that come into that. So that's really exciting.
Look at LA, right? I mean, LA and Dallas right now, as far as I'm aware, are the two leading cities in esports, right? LA number one, Dallas actually coming pretty close at this point because the amount of investment that's coming in. And what it's doing is driving companies like yours, right? That are helping, that are interested in that area and interested in building in that area and then interested in developing the same thing in other areas. That drive has put LA as a capital, and actually America as a whole has really started taking control of esports and become a mecca for esports. Most of the people would have said Japan or South Korea, but nowadays I would actually say America is the number one country for esports because of that investment coming in.
It's been an exciting couple of years. This is the tail end of now a 3-hour conversation. I'm sure we could spend the rest of the day talking, but this has been a great conversation, so I'm going to wrap it up here, and I appreciate your time. It's been very exciting, and we're glad to have you on NSG TV.
Glad to be there.
Thanks for coming.
Cheers.